Generally, postmortems can be carried out for the many reasons. Some of the reasons to diagnose the disease, to go for the some legal cases, and many things are there. The postmortem examination, nothing but an art. So how do you open the carcass? How do you examine the different organs? And finally, we should reach to the cause of death of the that particular organ, particular animal. It is the way to read message from dead to life. So generally, I'm using this term, reading of the message from dead to life, because it is a very big message and it has been given from dead animal to for the live animals, because we are going to save the animals, other animals, those are ailing animals, those are sick animals, and those are about to sick animals. So these are the things that we have to find out during the examination of the postmortems. So it is nothing but an art and examination of the internal organs in a very systematic manner. There are very simple indications for the postmortems. So the diagnostic postmortems, legal cases, and natural disasters. So nowadays we are observing, so the floods are there, electric cautions are there, some problems are there, winds are there. So many times such natural disasters are there. And finally, the diagnostic postmortem is one of the biggest thing and which can save the life of the other animals, and that we must understood that the cause of death and how the animals can be saved in a in that particular flock. Now, procedure for the postmortem examination. So here it is nothing new in that. So the careful examination of carcass, then that includes external examination and internal examination. So internal examination includes the opening of the carcass and observing the different organs, but external examination is also most important. In that case, we must observe the various mucous membranes. Discharge come from the natural orifices. Say, for example, we must see the mucous membranes of oral cavity, mucous membranes of eyes, vulva, and we should see that discharge is coming from either anus, from the nasal passage, or through the mouth or through the eyes. So that is come under the external examination. Then internal examination we must carry out very critically. Then neat and clean procedure for the dissection. So many times what happened, because of lack of some instruments and everything, so we are not able to carry out the neat postmortem. So the postmortem should be very clean. There should not be mess. Once we open the carcass, so we should keep the digestive organs very lastly, and we have to observe the other organs before opening the any digestive organs. So neat and clean postmortem examination is most important factor for the diagnosis of the diseases. Because what happen if we want to collect some samples for the virological examination or the bacteriological examination, and accidentally if you cut open the rumen first, so definitely it will create a mess, and the whole ruminal content will soil the internal organs, and our purpose of collection of material is about to get failed, or many times it get failed. So for that purpose, neat and clean postmortem or the procedure is needed. Then systemic approach to cut open the organs. So we should have a very plan type of postmortem. So it's not like they just opening the abdomen and thoracic cavities, cut open through the diaphragm, just observing the lungs from that place, and even not opening the trachea, not opening the larynx. So that is not a correct method of the opening the carcass or opening the organ system. So we should follow a very systematic approach for the opening of the carcasses. Then careful opening and serial sectioning of the solid organs. Solid organs like liver, kidney, we should go for the serial sectioning. Then accurate exploring of the tubular organs. So the tubular organ like uterus, tubular organ like intestines, the stomach, rumen, abomasum, that has to be opened very correctly. Otherwise, we are not able to find the different postmortem lesions. Then cut opening of the digestive organs at last. We should keep the digestive organ at very last, because once there is a soiling of the ingesta to the other organs, it's very difficult to remove that ingesta, and the whole postmortem will look very shabby, and that's why our postmortem may not look good. So that's why we should keep digestive organs at last. Then simultaneously collection of material for laboratory diagnosis, that may include the tissue, for the either histopathological examination for the isolation identification of the organisms, then we should collect the body fluids, maybe the thoracic cavity fluids, maybe the abdominal cavity fluids. Then we should take the impression smears of the some of the organs like the bronchus, trachea, lungs, then lymph nodes, maybe liver, like maybe the kidney. So in that case, we should collect simultaneous. So the opening collection, opening collection, opening collection, though this procedure we should follow, and that will be the more ideal to identify the or the it could be the very clean type of postmortem. Now here you can see how to cut open the subcutaneous tissue. Here you can see a video that will say that there is a cut opening of the subcutaneous tissue. We have to observe the subcut tissues very carefully. In that case, we should see the lymphatics, either they are open, they are collapsed, they are so we should see the subcutaneous tissue, then the musculature, is it some congested, then the edematous, parboiled appearance, then it get moist, or maybe the gelatinous transformation. So simultaneously, as soon as we are opening the subcutaneous tissue, we should keep in mind that these things are going on, and we should observe that. So here the chin too. So first was the opening of the skin over the abdominal cavity. Then here opening of the skin around the neck region. So here you can see very hemorrhagic or edematous type of things, they are present in the subcutaneous tissues. Then we should observe the subcutaneous tissues and musculature. So how the muscles are there, how the capillaries are there, are they collapsed, are they congested, what is the color of muscles. Here you can see the color of muscles is look like a parboiled appearance. So that was the case of severe septicemia. In the all type of septicemic conditions, we can see the muscles are look parboiled. Then here you can see the how to cut open the subcutaneous tissue. Here you can see some of the pictures and some of the conditions also, the congested blood vessels, the congested capillaries, then the little bit icterus is there, jaundice is there. So here you can see the two difference. Just here I am exploring I want to show how to explore the animal, or how to explore the carcass. Then here again the explore of the abdominal cavity, explore of the thoracic cavity. Here you can see the cleanliness of the postmortem. Here I am not cut open the any digestive organs over here. Here you can see the thoracic cavity has been opened. Here I could able to see a small lymph node, small hemorrhages are there in the thoracic cavity. Here you can see the small or the mild icterus is there. The all abdominal fat is become little bit yellowish in color. Then we should see the thoracic cavity. We should cut open the thoracic cavity fully. Whole thoracic cavity should be open completely, so as to we can observe the all minute changes into the thoracic cavity. Here you can see a very small quantity of the thoracic fluid, or the a small quantity of the edematous fluid is accumulated over here. Here you can see the whole thoracic cavity is filled with the gelatinous type of material, or it's a edematous fluid, and the pericardial fat is also become a edematous. So it's just I want to show the how we have to cut open the different body cavities. Here after cut opening the thoracic cavity, we should go for the trachea, opening of the trachea. You can see there's something is accumulated into the trachea, so we have to cut open the trachea from its opening towards the bronchial tree. So here the cut opening of the trachea. Here the bronchial trees are there. So here we have to cut open the bronchial tree, go much more deeper, so we can able to identify these textures, the feelings, the consistency, then the contents of the bronchus, then the feelings in the lungs. So either it is solidified, it's severely emphysematous, it is edematous, it is congested. So like that we should see the observe the different conditions into the lung. Then here at the right side, you can see it's an early stage of the marbling of the lungs. So these type of things we should able to observe. Then bronchus also should cut open very thoroughly, go to the deeper portions, and if you want to take impression smears, we have to take impressions from these particular areas. So whatever the exudate is there, we can able to take exudate from that particular area. So take impressions from impression smear from this area and go for the stains which are available with you. So that could be helpful you for the instant diagnosis of the different disease conditions. Then similar in this trachea also the same thing, we have to go for the uh, examination of the bronchus in a deeper portion. And for the impression smears, then if you want to take a swab from this for the isolation and identification of the organisms, you can collect the swab. You can collect the sterile swab from this. If don't have a sterile swab, you can take help of the new syringe. Directly in the new syringe, you can suck this material or the fluid which is accumulated in the trachea and bronchus. So that will be helpful for the isolation and identification of the organisms, and maybe this specific antibiotic sensitivity test, and that will help, definitely helpful for the early diagnosis of the disease, and we can save the life of the other animals. Then we should go for the heart and pericardium, epicardium and endocardium. So the how to hold the heart. So we should keep heart in our hand and just give cut at the parallel to the interventricular septum. So at the both the side, right side and left side. So right side and left sides we are able to identify very simply. So left side is a little bit tough as compared to right side. So the right side, left sides, and we have to observe the content of the heart, then the hemorrhages, maybe there's sometimes the calcification, sometimes there are blood clots, then the identification of different types of blood clots, maybe the current jelly clot, maybe the chicken fat clot, sometimes the heart chambers are empty. So like that we have to observe the different conditions of the heart, and based on that we are going to for the final conclusion of the our postmortem diagnosis. Then that after examination of the thoracic cavity organs, so we should go towards the liver, then the gallbladder, and later on kidney. So liver, we can observe the liver, then we should go for the different sectioning of the liver. So in the every section we should able to see what are the different changes that can be observed. Maybe the swelling of the hepatocytes, or whenever there is a swelling of liver, definitely whatever the cut edges are there, so the cut edges become rounded, and the two cut edges may not be able to come together when we try to make these two cut edges together. So there will be some gap between them, and that is an indication of there is a swelling of the liver. Then sometimes the color, different colors can be observed in during the sectioning of the liver. So sometimes it will be dark cherry red color, then sometimes congested, sometimes ischemic, sometimes icteric. So here you can see one of the picture of the icteric liver. So liver has become a very dark yellow in color. Then after liver we should go for the sectioning of the kidneys. So we have to observe the cortex, paracortex, medulla. Accordingly there are different conditions of the kidney are there. So sometimes there is a congestion of kidney, sometimes hemorrhage on the kidney, sometimes a little bit edematous fluid accumulated, sometimes the reddish fluid is there in the renal pelvis, sometimes there is a fibrosis. Whenever there is a fibrosis, the condition of kidney could be little bit changed, and the color of the kidney will be become a little bit paler or little bit white in color, and that is nothing but the necrosis followed by fibrosis. So such type of kidney is very hard to cut. So you can feel it, and we can say that the kidneys are a little bit contracted. If you compare these two kidneys, so you can see the margins of kidney are a little bit contracted somewhere, and this type of kidneys, generally the fibrous kidneys get shrunken. So these type of things can be observed while examining of the kidneys. Again, this another picture of the kidney. Then after kidney, then we should touch to the intestinal tract, mesentery. So before opening the rumen, omesum, abomasum, we should see the mesentery, then mesenteric lymph nodes, because many times we have to collect the mesenteric lymph nodes for the bacterial isolation, viral isolation. So mesenteric lymph nodes we should explore in a such manner that it should look very good. So just what we have to do, just keep all the intestines or the mesentery, just flip it over the rumen, so we are able to observe the different sections of the liver. So here you can see the cecum is there, and here the ileocecal junction is there. So this is the ileum. So you can make us different compartments, that wherever where is the duodenum, so duodenum should be lying over here, then jejunum over here, then ileum will start from here and it will end over here. So like that you can find out the different section of the intestines, and the whatever the things you want to collect, you can collect from the different parts of the intestines and the mesenteric lymph node. So here, so this is one big mesenteric lymph node, this is also mesenteric lymph nodes, and these are the very small mesenteric lymph nodes. So we have to collect the different mesenteric lymph nodes for the different virological isolation, for the different bacteriological isolation. Here also we can see the mesenteric lymph nodes are little bit necrosed and little bit hemorrhagic and little bit congested. You can see the capillaries are much more dominant or prominent over here. And if you could see the mesenteric blood vessels, these blood vessels are engorged ones. So engorgement of blood vessels should be identified by us. So we should see what are the different structures of mesenteric lymphatics as well as the mesenteric blood vessels, so that are most important for the diagnosis of the some of the disease conditions. So for that purpose, each and everything is much more important for the identification of the different pathological conditions and reach to the final diagnosis. Then once you explore the all intestines, then we should start the cut opening of the different sections. So generally we should start from cut opening of the cecum. So generally cecum is has to be cut open first. So in that case we have to observe the ileocecal junction. If you see the here, it is a ileocecal junction, this is a cecum. So generally the cecum is mainly the normal habitat of the trichuris. So this is the V-poem of the trichuris generally present over here. So the first organ should observe in the digestive tract is the cecum. Then along with that we should see the ileocecal junction and the content of the cecum or the lumen of cecum. So here you can see many trichuris are lying over here. So this is the cecum. So again you can see the ileocecal junctions with the trichuris. Then you can see the portion of the ileum. So the pair patches are much more prominent in the many of the cases. So we should see cut open the ileum and the pair patches into the ileal portion. Then after that you should observe we should observe the intestines, and after observing the different intestinal portions, we should go to the abomasum. So either we can go for the identification of different pathological conditions like abomasal ulcers. Then sometimes we are observing very small tiny white type of nodules in the abomasum. So all these things make some sense of the identification of different pathological conditions. So after abomasum we should go for the rumen. So rumen, Turkish towel type of appearance. So is there any inflammation, is there any adhesion, is there any presence of some pathological etiological factors? Like here you can see some of the amphistomes are lying over here. So these are the ruminal papillae. You can see there is a severe inflammatory reaction in the observed in the mucosa of the rumen. So this is about the cut opening of the different organs and the exploring of the different organs for the identification of different pathological conditions. Then this is the reticulum. So you can see after rumen we should go for the reticulum. So see for the mucosa of the reticulum, you can see sometimes you will get severe inflammation, sometimes there is no inflammation. Like likewise here there is no inflammation, but here you can see there is a initiation of the inflammation. So the honeycomb like structure sometimes show hemorrhages, sometimes show the diffuse type of inflammatory reaction. So like this here you can see the diffuse inflammatory type of reactions. So this is about the cut opening of the digestive organs, and finally we should go for the reticulum. So this is about just simple things of the simple method of the procedure of the cut opening of the carcass and observation of the different types of organs, different type of pathological conditions. Now from here we can see different conditions, common conditions that can be encountered into the different conditions of the rearing. So zero grazing, nowadays goats are okay, but some shepherds or some peoples are nowadays they are moving towards the sheep zero grazing. But zero grazing for goat is generally means many people are moving towards that. So the conditions which are encountered in these all these type of sheep and goat grazings, so main and first important thing is that the colostrum feeding errors. So ultimately we should reach to the some final conclusions. So before that we must understood the history of that particular animals, history of the birth and everything. So history of the feeding, history of watering, everything we must have with us for the giving final conclusion and giving the final decision, diagnosis, as well as the treatment aspect to the or the preventive aspect to that particular farmer. So the first important factor is that many times the farmers are not able to concentrate on the colostrum feeding to their newborn kids or the lamb. So the colostrum should be fed, as we know, before 30 minutes to the particular animals. If not there, then the coli bacillosis or the E. coli infection is more, and ultimately the whatever the antibodies or the passive immunity which has to be come from the its mother, it's not getting directly to that particular kid or the lamb, and ultimately the early embryon or early mortality in the sheep and goat kids, sheep and goat young ones can be observed. So colostrum feeding is a most important factor in that. Then different management and different feeds. So zero grazing is having the different kinds of feeds than the grazing animals. Even if there is a change in the microflora of the grazing animal is different, microflora of the stall fed animal or the zero grazing animals is different. Then there are different changes in the sanitization, cleaning errors and habits of the animals in the zero grazing. Then errors in rearing. So sometimes the farmers may have their farms having the poor ventilation, poor sunlight, poor shelter. Then many times if there is a change in the sudden change in the feed, ultimately that will affects the ruminant microflora, and ultimately that may lead to the digestive disturbances, and ultimately sometimes there are possibility of the death in the animals. So sudden change in feed, high protein diet is one of the biggest constraint in the stall feeding animals, because to get much more gaining in weight, many of the farmers they are giving high protein diet, even the non-proteinous nitrogen sources to the animals also to get much more body weights. Then sometimes many animals are suffering from the recurrent acidosis. So like large animals, SARA is there. Here also the same type of things that SARA is there, subacute ruminal acidosis is there. Then aflatoxikosis is one of the biggest problem in the stall feeding also, as well as in the grazing animals. So the important factor is that the storage of feed, especially green feed as well as dry feed. So storage is a main concern in the creation of the aflatoxicosis or the chronic aflatoxicosis in case of the stall fed animals. Then recurrent coccidiosis and recurrent tapeworm infestation is one of the again constraint for the stall feeding animals, because the recurrent coccidia is there. It's because of the just continuous oral fecal contamination of the coccidial oocyst. Many times the small kids are there, they are moving here and there. Sometimes the layman which are cleaning the floor, many times he may enter into the feeders, or he may enter into the mangers which has been prepared over there, and many times there is a soiling of the feed, soiling of the feeders, that may lead to the recurrent coccidial infections, and that ultimately lead to the chronic enteropathy. And chronic enteropathy definitely loses the body weight, and the animals are not able to reach up to the maximum body weights, and ultimately farmers may say that the stall fed may not be good, but they are not able to identify their problems like a coccidia. uh, Coccidia acute generally is not observed. In very rare conditions, that maybe the acute coccidiosis can be observed, but maximum time recurrent coccidia is a chronic type of coccidia, and that ultimately lead to the wasting of the animals, and definitely the body weight is not up to the mark. Then infectious diseases like HSPPR, Mycoplasma, Leptospira, tuberculosis, they are very common in both the conditions, the zero-grazing as well as the grazing animals. But the tuberculosis is much more common in the zero-grazing animal because there is a common factor that sometimes again the same human beings which are if he is suffering from tuberculosis, generally the whenever he has having the cup sense or the coughing is there, many times the such type of humans or the laborers, they can spit over there, and the spitting will contaminate the feeds of the animals, the environment of the animals, and ultimately there are maximum chances of the infection from human beings to the sheep and goats in that particular farm. Then tick-borne infestation or the infections, the Thalaria, Anaplasma, Babesia, that is also very common conditions in the zero grazing animals. So these are some of the conditions that can be observed in the zero grazing of the sheep and goats. Then grazing type of animals, the same error will be there. The colostrum feeding, generally they will wait for the young one will be stand on their feet, and he will go or she will go to the udder of their mother, and that will suck the colostrum. So that is very bad habit, and we should think we should train these peoples to feed colostrum very earlier, maximum 20 to 30 minutes, not more than that. So if such type of things are there, then definitely a lamb or kid mortality is there because of the colobacillus. Then different management, different feeds, even as I said, the microflora of the stall fed animals is different, microflora of the grazing animals are different. Even the color of ruminal content, color of the ruminal content is different in the grazing animals, color of ruminal content is different in the grazing animal, non-zero grazing animals. So error in the rearing, generally when any outbreak conditions are there in the sheep and goat, definitely these peoples are having very low knowledge of about the isolation of the infected sheep and goats. Generally all animals will be kept in the one paddock or the one area, and generally at night all animals infected and non-infected, they will come together, and ultimately from infected animals there are chances of carrying of infection or the spread of infection from infected animal to the normal animals. So that is the biggest constraints. Those people are grazing the animals, they can walk around 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, 5 kilometers. So daily they are changing their shelter places, or the especially a night stay is different at the different locality. So all these animals will be kept, infected as well as non-infected animals will be kept together, and ultimately that lead to the transmission of disease very fastly. Then sudden change in feed, because the grazing animals, they are daily exposing to the unexpected feed, so they don't know what type of feeds are there. So unexpected feed is constant factor for the diseases in or the some maybe the predisposing factor for the different diseases. Then weeds are different, shrubs are different. Then many times there are protein deficiencies are there, so there is no challenge feeding to them. There is no specific pregnancy diet, so the ewe or the doe is generally suffering from the protein deficiency. Then aflatoxicosis, it's a common factor also. Then toxic feeds and weeds, that is also the very big problem for the grazing type of animals. Then ampistomes, fasciola, trichuris, esophagus,tomum, tapeworms, these are so again the biggest problem for these grazing type of animals. Then infectious diseases like HSPPR, FMD, blue tongue, foot rots, pox, mycoplasma, leptospira, Jones disease, and anthrax. So these are the very commonly observed type of infections up till now to me. So here HSPPR, FMD, blue tongue, foot rots, pox, mycoplasma, leptospira, Jones disease, and anthrax. So these are the very commonly observing conditions or the pathological conditions in the sheep and goats. Then tick-borne infections are also this similar to the stall-fed animals. So or the zero-grazing animals, the Theileria, Anaplasma, and Babesia. So these are the differences in the diseases of the zero-grazing and grazing animals. Now, enteropathy. So straight away we should go towards the enteropathy. Enteropathy is characterized by the wasting, anemia, submandibular edema, ascites, hydrothorax, thorax, low vigor, poor growth, and no fever. So here, if you see the carcass of that particular animal, so you can see the mucous membranes of that particular carcass are look like the boiled white color eggs. Boiled type of eggs can be observed over here. So completely white color type of mucous membranes are there. Boiled egg white type of mucous membranes are there into the that particular animal. Then you can see there is a gelatinous transformation of adipose tissue. If the such animals are there, enteropathy is very common and it can be observed in the many conditions. So here just I am giving the outline of that pathology. So gelatinous transformation of adipose tissue. So as we know, the gluconeogenesis is one of the pathophysiological phenomenon that can be observed in the animals. Those animals are not getting that much of the proper feeding, proper energy. So whatever the fat depots are there, that can be utilized by the for the giving energy to that particular animal. So the all gelatinous transformation of adipose tissue can be observed in case of the chronic enteropathy. Enteropathy can be observed because of the so many things that we will discuss later on. So enteropathy. So here you can see gelatinous transformation of adipose tissue. Then you can see the all internal organs are very pale. There is a paleness of the internal organs. Then you can see this one of the video. That video indicates there is a presence of hydrothorax, thorax, and ascites. You can see. You can see the thoracic cavity is filled with the clear watery fluid. You can see it's nothing but the water. Water is coming throughout. So it is the ultimate result of the enteropathy, malabsorption syndrome, we can say, or the animal is not able to assimilate the whatever they have been eaten. So there is a hypoproteinemia, and ultimately there are chances of the accumulation of fluid in the various body cavities. So here you can see ascites as well as hydrothorax. So this is a very common conditions observed in the many pathological or the etiological factors. So hydrothorax, a clear watery fluid is coming from the thoracic cavity. It's ascites. You can see the clear watery fluid can be accumulated into the abdominal cavity. So enteropathy can be observed because of the so many disease conditions or the etiological factors. Then in such animals, we can see chicken fat type of blood clots are there in the major blood vessels as well as in the chambers of the heart. Then one of the biggest factor is the immature amphistomiasis. If you see, immature amphistomes can be identified into the duodenal wall or the mucosa of the duodenum. You can see very small, tiny, pinkish type of material or the pinkish type of parasites present over here. You can see very small, tiny, because they can migrate from the duodenum to the abdominal cavity. While moving from there, they can cause a small perforations to the intestines, and because of that enteropathy can be developed. And if you take the scraping now, what we have to do, if you are observing such type of lesions, ascites is there, thoracic cavity is having some fluid, then the animals are having or the animals are suffering from little bit diarrhea. In such cases, we should open the duodenum. Many times people are not able to open the duodenum, because if we are not open each and every organs, we may miss the pathological or the etiological factors. So it's request to cut open the all necessary organs. So while opening the duodenum, we should find, if we find such small white tiny pink type of material, then just take a scraping from that with the scalpel blade, put it on the slide, and just observe under the microscope. You will able to see this type of immature amphistomes, and these immature amphistomes are ultimately biggest etiological factor for this. And if you are observing that, then ultimately we are able to give suggestions to that particular owner that you should not go to that particular area where you are going daily since last 20 days or 14 days. So he has to change his water places, his feeding places. Otherwise this problem will not be stopped anyhow by giving so many or the n number of the enthelmentings. So the basic thing is that we should give suggestion to the farmers that he should keep away his animals from that particular place of the watering. So these type of problems are generally observed in case of grazing type of animals. So daily at that particular maybe the river, maybe the small what we say, the ponds are there. In that particular ponds and rivers, these peoples go day by day, and the infections they are getting from that particular area, and ultimately their animals are infected on daily basis. And definitely there is no change in the break of that amphistomes, and ultimately the death of animals are observed because of the hypoproteinemia, diarrhea, dehydration, and ultimately the extensive gluconeogenesis, hypoxia, and ultimately death is there. Then mature amphistomes, we can see the extensive number of amphistomes are present over the mucosa of the mucosa of the rumen. Then another factor is a coccidia. Many times the coccidia is neglected by the many peoples. So coccidial lesions are observed at the two places. One is the abomasum, another is the intestine. So abomasum will have a very small tiny white type of granular lesions over here, small very tiny nodular or the proliferative type of lesions in the abomasum, as well as the proliferative type of enteritis into the mucosa of the intestine. So what we have to do, just take a scraping from this white nodules, white scraping, white foci, scraping with the scalpel blade, put it on the slide, and just put a cover slip and observe under the microscope. You will be able to observe the many coccidial oocysts as well as the gametocytes of the coccidia. So these gametocytes can be observed very carefully under the microscope, and once you know that this is because of the coccidia, then treatment is very easy. So here again, I will show the coccidia or the coccidial lesions over the abomasum. The folds of abomasums are there, and we should observe the each and every part of the body very carefully. So very small, tiny white type of lesions on the abomasum is an indication of the enteropathy caused by because of the coccidia. So these very small white nodules, tiny structures are the present on the abomasum, and it is most important factor for the identification of coccidiosis in the sheep and goats. Then here you can see this one is the acute coccidia. So extensive part of the intestines is affected by the coccidia. You can see the each and every part of the or portion of the intestine is affected by the coccidial oocyst. Coccidia, that may lead to the proliferative enteritis, and ultimately that lead to the enteropathy. After examination of this under microscope, we can see some of the gametocytes, some of the coccidial oocysts that can be observed. Then beyond coccidia, another conditions that may lead to the enteropathy is the pimply gut condition. So pimply gut conditions may lead to the enteropathy because of the calcification, multinodular necrosis over the mucosa and cirrhosis of intestines. There is a poor assimilation of the products or the poor assimilation of the nutrients, and ultimately that lead to the poor assimilation of proteins and hypoproteinemia. Finally, the ascites is there, hydrothorax is there, and ultimately there is a death of the animal is there. The same thing that I have already mentioned earlier. Then another disease is the Jones disease. So it's a very common condition in the some of the particular areas of the some of the portion of the Maharashtra. So you can see there is a corrugation of the intestines, and such farmers will having complained that their animals are having diarrhea since last 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. Or some of the farmers told me that their animals are even non-stop diarrhea is there since last 1 year. So ultimately, this diseases get spread very fastly at a rural level, because the all animals will go for the grazing at particular area. So whole animals of that particular village will go to the same area for the grazing. Then for watering also, ultimately the fecal matter of this particular infected animal will be the source of infection, and the whole village will be affected by the Jones disease. And I have observed since last 3-4 years, there's such type of many big villages are there, and they are having the similar type of problems. Even more than thousands of animals in a particular one village, they are affected by the Jones disease. Then abomasal ulcers is one of the common factor for the enteropathy, because there is a continuous loss of blood from these abomasal ulcers. Such animals will show the symptoms of melena, and abomasal ulcers are there. Abomasal ulcers will lead to the bleeding, and the continuous and progressive loss of blood may lead to the hypoproteinemia, anemia, and ultimately the death of the animal is there. Then beyond that, the mature fasciolosis may lead to the liver fibrosis, and ultimately whatever the intestines is absorbing from the or the intestines get absorb nutrients will go to the liver, but not able to manage that nutrients, and because of the fibrosis of the liver, and such animals are also suffering from the enteropathies. Now, after observing the enteropathies, we should see some of the very common conditions, that the field conditions, that is a pneumonia. Sometimes there is a drenching pneumonia. Sometimes there is a lung edema, pulmonary congestion, hydrothorax, hydropericardium, hypoproteinemia. So we have discussed hypoproteinemia in detail just now. But pneumonia, different types of pneumonia is very common conditions. Then the pneumonia because of the HS, PPR, mycoplasma, mixed pathogens, and parasites also. Then mycoplasma plus HS. So mycoplasma will have, it's characterized by the fibrinopurulent inflammation of the pleural cavity. Then the pleura is affected by the fibrinopurulent type of inflammation, and along with that, many times the HS organisms can be isolated from this particular lungs. Then if you see the thoracic cavity of such animals, you could see the whole cavity is filled with the fibrinopurulent type of inflammation. Then the accumulation of the thick layer over the lungs, and there is an adhesion of this material to the thoracic cavity, and there is accumulation of the inflammatory fluid, inflammatory exudate into the thoracic cavity. So these are the things can be observed in the mycoplasmosis. Then consolidation of lungs are there. The lungs become very solidified because of the acute because of the inflammatory reactions. There is a accumulation of the neutrophils, the fibrins. Then the ultimately all these things may lead to the change in the shape, change in the consistency of the lungs, and that we called as a consolidation or the hepatization. So it having the similar consistency to that of liver. So hepatization of the liver, hepatization of lung is there in case of many type of pneumonic conditions. So here I am not giving some specific type of conditions, because unless and until we go for the isolation and identification of organism, it's better to say just we can say this is a only gross picture, having the consolidation, having the marbling, having the very tough type of, or the very solidified type of lungs. So ultimately I have find out many etiological agents through the this type of pathology of the lungs. So that includes the HS, mycoplasma, sometimes the streptococcus. They were identified from such type of consolidated lungs. Then this is the ultimately typical type of marbling of the lung is there. So sometimes the marbling is a combination of the HS and mycoplasma together. So just it is a marbling. So here we can go for the isolation and identification of organism, and then we can go for the final conclusion. But for the farmers, if we are sure about the this is because of the mycoplasma, this is because of HS, so we can give such type of remedies to the farmers, and ultimately we can save the life of that particular flock. Then here consolidation, once again the different patchy type of consolidation can be observed over here. Again the marbling is there. Then in case of HS, sometimes there is a diffuse inflammation, sometimes there is a consolidation. You can see the consolidation. Then ultimately the multi organs are get involved into the different type of pathological conditions. So along with lungs, we could see some inflammatory reaction or the pathological condition into the heart. So after lungs we can see heart. So heart will have some hemorrhages over the epicardium, hemorrhages over the endocardium also. Then some conditions like pyothorax, they can be observed many times at the field conditions. Then tuberculosis and mycoplasmosis, they are observed in the stall fed type of animals. So here you can see the whole abdominal, so whole thoracic cavity is filled with the gelatinous type of mass, fibrinopurulent type of conditions or the material. Here you can see some cheesy material can be observed into the lymph nodes. Here the mediastinal lymph nodes are there. All these mediastinal lymph nodes are having the small miliary type of lesions over here. You can see very small white nodules over here. So mycoplasma was there. Along with that, tuberculosis was also observed in that particular animal. Here also you can see the cheesy material. Then the small white nodular lesions over here. Then the small pearl type of lesions over here, small calcified areas. Then the organism was isolated from that particular lungs. Here again the same lung is here. Then bronchonemia. Bronchopneumonia is one of the common condition, can be observed in the field conditions. Animal having the violent coughing. Violent coughing is there, and once we observe such carcasses, they are having the violent cough and died because of the septicemia toxemia. We can able to see some bronchus are filled with the serofibrinous, seropurulent, seromucoid material, serous or mucoid material, fibrinopurulent type of material into the bronchus, and ultimately we could see this type of material observed in the bronchus. Then sometimes on the impression smear examination, we are able to see the bipolar organisms for the tentative early diagnosis of the disease conditions. So Pasteurella will be observed over here. So after observing the different conditions of the respiratory tract, we should see the digestive problems. We should examine oral cavity. We should examine the oral lesions. Then we have to see ruminal problems like the grain engorgement, toxic feeds, plastic paper consumptions, parasites are there, abomasal problems are there, parasites are there, NSID, use of NSID, then filaria, then enteritis, maybe the acute enteritis and chronic enteritis. So these are the major problems that can be observed as a digestive problems in case of the both the types of animals, the zero-grazing animals as well as the grazing animals. So NSIDs is a very biggest problem nowadays. Just looking towards the fever animals or the looking towards the fever human beings generally having tendency to give the NSIDs to the particular animal, and for 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 day, 5 days, and longer period, 7 days also sometimes they are giving the NSIDs. Along with that, NSID, people are not giving the some H2 blockers. Ultimately, NSID will definitely cause abomasal ulcerations, and once the abomasal ulcerations are there, ultimately that lead to the extensive bleeding to the abomasum, and ultimately the melena is there, and animal may die because of the inflammation. Die because of the hypovolemia and extensive anemia. So these things can be observed at the field conditions. Then sudden deaths are there after observing the digestive. Sudden deaths are there. Sudden death may be observed because of the toxicity. Sudden death may be because of the septicemia, toxemia, HS, sometimes anthrax. Then sometimes there is an extensive bleeding because of the internal bleeding because of the fasciola, immature fasciola hepatica. Then sometimes the electric shock, strangulation, drowning is there, trenching pneumonia. So these are the some of the causes of the sudden death in the animal. So here we can see some of the videos of the same thing. So here you can see extensive bleeding in the abdominal cavity, thoracic cavity. It is because of the immature fasciola. So here you can see extensive blood loss is there into the abdominal cavity and thoracic cavity because of the migratory immature fasciola that lead to the extensive bleeding, and farmers will complain that the animal dies suddenly. Just have a colic for a few seconds and collapse suddenly. It is because of the migratory type of immature fasciola may lead to the extensive bleeding into the abdominal cavity as well as sometimes in the thoracic cavity, and that lead to the extensive blood loss, and there is a death of that particular animals. Here again, once again, you can see extensive loss of blood. Extensive loss of blood is there, and ultimately extensive anemia, extensive hypovolemia, and sudden shock is there. Animal die because of the shock. Here you can see the actual etiological factor. Once you observe such type of lesions, the abdominal cavity is full of, or the thoracic cavity is full of blood, then we should see the examining liver thoroughly. You can see the immature fasciola, they can be lying anywhere into the liver parenchyma, sometimes in the lungs, sometimes in the kidney and abdominal cavity. Then another disease that may lead to the sudden death, that is the anthrax. So many times anthrax is there. Earlier it was said that there is a tarry color discharge from the natural orifices, but nowadays what I observed since last 5-7 years, the animals are showing just bleeding from the nose, a little bit bleeding from the nose, and if we take the impression smear and the smear from the ear, then we are able to identify the organisms of the organism of the anthrax, the typical bamboo stick like appearance of that particular anthrax organism. Then another important etiological factor is a toxicity, sudden death because of the toxicity. So here you can see severe inflammation of the all internal organs. You can see the severe inflammation of abomasum, severe inflammation of the rumen, severe inflammation of the reticulum, severe inflammation of intestines. So extensive bleeding is there, extensive inflammation is there. Ultimately, the color of intestine, color of rumen, color of reticulum, color of everything has been get changed. Then some of the other etiological factor that may lead to the sudden death is the grain engorgement. Grain engorgement may lead to the consumption of the grains in a large amount, and after that animal generally drink the waters a lot, then the grains start swelling because of the water. There is a swelling of grains, and ultimately the severe tympani is there, the extensive engorgement or the enlargement of the rumen is there, and ultimately the animal is died because of the shock. Then viral infections like PPR. So generally having complaint of the coughing, diarrhea, fever, salivation, then bran-like deposits in the oral cavity. FMD is also one of the common factor nowadays is observing in the small animals or the small ruminants. The sudden death in the young animals, the growing and young and growing animals, blister formation in oral cavity, coronate, then the secondary infection and septicemia is there. Blue tongue is also there. There is a discoloration of the tongue, then the presence of hemorrhages or the oral mucosa or the papillae, then salivation, coughing, and death. And as we know, it is transmitted by the culicoids insect. Then pox lesions are also there. Oral lesions can be observed, skin lesions, lung lesions, trachea, small nodules can be observed anywhere in the any type of mucosa. Then the ulcerative wounds in the mucosa of the trachea. Then fever is there, wasting is there, and ultimately death of the animal is there. Then pox, orf is there. The rabies sometimes can be observed into the animals. Then PPR, we can see PPR. So typical zebra type of markings are there. Then pear patches are much more necrosed and enlarged. Here you can see different types of lesions. Sometimes there are hemorrhages on the abomasum. Abomasum will have the hemorrhages. Erosions are there. Extensive inflammation is there. Here you can see the hemorrhages can be observed over the tip of the papillae or the folds of the abomasum. Then the erosive enteritis can be observed over here. Zebra type of markings could be observed on the intestines. Then one of the typical characteristic findings is the presence of hemorrhages on the ileocecal junction over here. Then mesenteric lymph nodes are edematous, hemorrhagic, and congested one. Then blue tongue, there is a discoloration of lungs also, blue discoloration of lungs. Here you can see the papillae will have the pinpoint hemorrhages over the tip of the oral papillae. Then FMD, you can see the erosions and blister formation. So small blisters are present over here. There is a rupture of blisters over here, and ultimately the ulcerations can be observed in the oral cavity. Ulceration over the stomach. Here you can see small vesicles are there. Somewhere there is a rupture of vesicles. So there is a rupture of vesicles. Here again, the rupture vesicles can be observed on the ruminal grooves. Whatever the ruminal grooves are there, ruminal grooves will show the ulcerations, and ultimately these ulcerations because of the rupture of the vesicles. In pox lesions, oral lesions can be observed in the pox. The small raised type of borders are there. Then pox lesions on the tongue, pox lesions in the subcutaneous tissues, pox lesions over the trachea. You can see ulcerative type of lesions over the mucosa of the trachea. Then the pox lesions over the lung in the form of nodules throughout the lung tissues. Here you can see the ultimately the all the lung tissues will have these small white nodular lesions throughout the liver section. Then sometimes you can see able to see the pox lesions over the kidneys also. Then after some of the viral conditions, those are very commonly observed in the conditions at the field conditions. The next is the protozoal infections. The Theileria, Babesia, Anaplasma is very commonly observed in the conditions at the field conditions. Tick-borne infections, anemia, generally the symptoms like anemia, fever, melena, coughing, jaundice, and enlargement of the superficial lymph nodes. Babesia, tick-borne infection, red copy color urine, then fever is there, and if not treated in proper time, deaths are there. So anaplasma, progressive fever, and jaundice is there. So and the coccidia, again the Balantidium and coccidia, these two things that may lead to the infection into the intestines and the rumen. Then Theileria in sheep and goat, generally they having the jaundice or the ecteric mucous membranes, ecteric subcutaneous tissue. You can see the lung edema because of the anemia. Then there is a congestion. Then the enlargement of lymph nodes. If you could see, there is an enlargement of the subscapular lymph nodes. Then yellow discoloration of the whole abdominal fat, then the thoracic fat, and there is a lung edema because of the anemia, and ultimately the secondary complication may lead to the severe pneumonia, severe purulent or the seropybrinous type of pneumonia. Then hemorrhages over the pericardium, epicardium. Then the chicken fat clot is there with the yellow discoloration. The serum is become the plasma become yellow in color. That's why the heart chamber in case of Theileria will show this kind of yellow discolored chicken fat clot into the major blood vessel as well as the in the chambers of the heart. Then you can see sometimes there are ulceration from the outside also, ulceration in the abomasum, ulceration in the rumen also. Then ecteric is there, jaundice is there. Then liver will show multifocal necrosis and yellow discoloration. Then abomasal ulcers are there. Then the punch type of ulcers. So in both the cases, punch type of ulcer as well as abomasal ulcers can be observed. So here again you can see the punch type of ulcer. They are very common in case of the theileriosis. Then parasitic infections. Already we have discussed about the fasciola, amphistomes, roundworm, pimply gut conditions that may lead to the malabsorption syndrome, then the wasting is there, death is there. Ultimately, tapeworms that lead to diarrhea, wasting of the animals, anemia, immunosuppression. So all these parasite conditions or the parasitic infection may lead to these type of pathological conditions. Immature fascicula may lead to the sudden death because of the internal bleeding that you have seen the video of the same thing. Then immature fascicula or the mature fascicula may lead to the submandibular edema, ascites, diarrhea, wasting and death. Empistomes, mature and immature, both will have the mature will have tympani, immature will have the submandibular edema, wasting and the ascites and death. Finally, roundworm pimply gut conditions, malabsorption syndrome, and ultimately the wasting and death is there. Then tick-borne infections, the tick may lead to the anemia, hemoprotozoal infection, mites are there, alopecia, skin quality become rough, scaly, dandruffs are there. Then flea, animals become restless and become weak. So they fly, many times it is also called as nakadi, it's because of the Easter ovis. There is a laying of the eggs at the external layers, and larvae may migrate towards the sinuses and may lead to the sneezing, coughing, sneezing, and nervous signs. Here you can see some of the fascicular organisms present in the liver parenchyma. Then wall sickness because of anaplasma. Then Istus ovis can be observed in the nasal turbinates or the nasal sinuses. Sometimes the accidentally Istus ovis may observe into the rumen, because after death of the animal, this larva can migrate from the nasal turbinate or the sinuses, maybe into the oral cavity, maybe into the trachea, maybe into the esophagus, and those will enter into the esophagus, may can be recovered from the rumen, but it is not a pathological condition of the rumen, it is a condition of the nasal turbinate, and from that nasal bone or the sinuses, this larva can migrate either in the trachea, either in the esophagus or in the mouth cavity, and sometimes they may be encountered into the ruminal content. So that is an accidental entry after death of animal. Generally, this can be observed. Then NSAID, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, ultimately may lead to the extensive ulceration into the abomasum, and ultimately severe pains are there, and that may lead to the death of the animal because of the severe pain as well as the extensive bleeding into the abdominal cavity. So here, finally, we have reached to the last slide of the today's session, the message to read from dead to life. So the gross lesion, lab diagnosis, instant diagnosis. So gross lesions, so all gross lesions should be thoroughly examined, should be noted very well. Then after that, it should be analyzed very properly. Along with that, we should take help of lab diagnosis that may include the instant laboratory diagnosis. So instant laboratory diagnosis may include the impression smear, then identification of some of the organisms like HS, like mycoplasma. Instantly, we can go for the either Leishman stains, maybe the Jimsa stain, and ultimately we are able to identify different type of the pathological conditions. Then the lab diagnosis for the further investigation, as well as the having some specific medications for that particular animal. So taking up the fluid, exudate, or the piece of intestine, piece of lungs, those are affected by that particular infection, go for the isolation, go for culture, or you directly go for isolation, directly go for the antibiotic sensitivity. So ultimately, we are able to give a proper antibiotics to that particular flock of the animals, and finally, we are able to save the life of the other animals. So the gross lesion identification, the lab diagnosis, instant diagnosis, and beyond that, the proper and neat postmortem examination are the important things, and that is the message from dead to live. And ultimately, it will help for we people as well as it will help for the animal owners to save their lives. So here, thank you very much.